Talk a little New Orleans Pelicans. The NBA season started 2 days ago. The Pelicans kicked off their regular season last night, and they got a win in Memphis against a shorthanded Grizzlies team, 111-104. Obviously, if you're a Pelicans fan, it feels good to be undefeated after all the discourse the last few months about Zion Williamson and injury luck and all that good stuff. It definitely feels good to start the season off with a win. That being said, I wouldn't be too pumped up if you're a Pelicans fan because, quite frankly, the Grizzlies right now, at their kind of state, are not a very good basketball team. You know, they're going to play hard. They're going to play good defense. They have some talented players, but they don't really have anybody that could create their own shot. And the Pelicans really benefited off of that defensively last night, played some really good defense. And obviously it helps a lot when you don't have to deal with Ja Morant. And Steven Adams was out too. He'll miss the rest of the season for Memphis. Not having that rim protection, that interior defense was big. And guys like Jonas Valanciunas, Zion Williamson definitely benefited off of that. So looking at the stats here, I think you had to start with CJ McCollum, who had a team high 24 points, but it was the way he scored them. Very efficient. And I heard Taylor talking about CJ's performance coming in. This is somebody who has had to play as the first option, second option, a lot of the times when he was assigned to be the third guy, right, behind Brandon Ingram and behind Zion. But he played off the ball a lot last night. He was moving off the ball really well, and he worked his way into some really good shots. Like I said, really efficient. 8 of 16 from the field, 6 of 11 from three. And CJ McCollum, I think, deserved a lot of credit for sticking it out last season. I know he didn't have the best finish, Taylor, but he was playing through some pain, and we knew he was going to be a big part of the offense coming into this season. But I really liked watching him last night off the ball, playing really well off of BI, really well off of Zion, and hopefully that's the CJ McCollum that we see for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he played really well. I mean, you mentioned it. 50% shooting, 6 of 11 from three, which was the most important thing in my opinion, because we talked about it all offseason coming into this year. Pelicans don't have that much three-point shooting, so if you can get that from CJ McCollum, that's great. He's kind of turned into the leader of this team. You know, he's the most veteran guy. I get that Brandon Ingram's been there a while, but CJ McCollum been in the league for so long, always been a solid player. Mario, what I really liked about this game last night, I understand it was a nail-biter against a shorthanded Grizzlies team. I understand they gave up 104, but the Grizzlies were without Ja Morant and Steven Adams. So the next guy that you needed to neutralize was Jaren Jackson Jr., and they did that. Herb Jones, credit to him, he was lined up on this guy a lot last night. He did a really good job. Jaren Jackson finished 2 for 9, just 8 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. So when you neutralize the other team's best player, you always have a chance to win, and that's what they did.
Yeah, they had him flustered. And I think Jonas Valanciunas, like I said, deserves a lot of credit. He had a double-double in the game. He was a plus 16, which was the best clip of all the starters for the Pelicans. And obviously, he's an ex-Memphis Grizzly, so that had to feel really good for him. And we'll talk about Zion, but if I can go on about JV for a second here, I kind of had the unpopular opinion over the offseason that the Pelicans should keep him. A lot of fans, a lot of media, maybe the coaching staff, based on some of their rotations last year, thought maybe Jonas Valanciunas wasn't the best fit for the Pelicans as their starting center. But I think he's just a really good basketball player. Like, sometimes you can't overthink things. 14 points, 10 rebounds per game. His averages from last season don't just grow on trees. Like, this is your best rebounder. And he's a really smart player. He's a veteran. He's somebody who's a decent shooter. I say decent. He needs to be a little bit more consistent. Although last night he shot the ball pretty well from 3, 2 for 4. But I think he could play pretty well off of Zion, like better than some people think. And last night, as a starter, he played really well. I think he deserves a lot of credit for his performance. And then to Taylor's point, played really well defensively against Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot of the time. So I think Jonas is primed to have a really good season. Herb Jones, to your point, played really well. 4 for 8 from the field, 13 points, really good defense. And then your stars, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, they were both kind of quiet last night, and you still won the game pretty comfortably. That has to be a good sign going forward for the Pelicans. BI, I thought, did a really good job as a playmaker, saw the floor really well, had the 6 assists, but wasn't, spectacular shooting the ball. 19 points on 7 for 18 shooting. And then Zion didn't have the best game, at least the most explosive game, but he did a really good job closing in Memphis last night. Played well in the fourth quarter. He finished the game with 23 points, 9 of 17 from the field, and he's playing. He's on the court. That's the important thing. I told my roommate yesterday, he walks in, he's like, how's the game going? I'm like, it's awesome. I just saw Brandon Ingram throw Zion Williamson an alley-oop in a real NBA game, and I'm not dreaming. So those guys are going to get it going, Taylor, but it's nice to finally see them on the court.
Yeah, it is nice. The one issue, I guess, if I had to say. 21 turnovers is a lot. Brandon Ingram had 5 of them, and I understand he handled the ball a lot last night, but you got to clean that up. I mean, you win the game, but you lose that turnover battle 21-13 against a shorthanded team. If that team's not shorthanded, maybe this game goes the other way. That's the one thing they got to clean up, which they were really bad about last year as well. I was hoping that, they'd clean it up, but it's a young season. It's their first time all together. I mean, you mentioned Zion, Ingram, and CJ McCollum have barely played any games together, so they're still feeling things out a little bit, but that's the one thing I really wanted to see cleaned up.
Yeah, and a lot of them weren't live ball turnovers, which is a good thing, but I kind of like the new offensive philosophy. We've talked a little bit about James Borrego, the new head assistant for the Pelicans, that was basically brought in to be like the de facto offensive coordinator. And a lot of stuff that guys have talked about throughout the offseason, off-ball movement, getting out in transition, not letting the ball be so sticky like last year. I think you saw a lot of that last night. The ball was moving really well, and you saw a lot of designed set plays that you didn't see last year. And a guy that really benefited off of that was the Pelicans' newest addition, Matt Ryan. Good quarterback. That's what Taylor says every time.
He is, man. Look, since he retired from the NFL, he's become a good basketball player. 9 points off the bench. Shout out to my guy.
Yeah, Matt Ryan saving the city of New Orleans, right? Providing some of that shooting that they've missed a lot. And obviously, you'll see a lot of Trey Murphy in that role when he's back. He's going to miss the first couple months of the season. But Matt Ryan was on fire this game, moving around, catching, kind of in one motion, draining threes. I don't think that's going to be super consistent going forward, to be honest with you, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Matt Ryan, becomes a really good, consistent shooter. You saw him bounce around a little bit early in his career. Started the season last year with the Lakers. We all remember that shot he hit against the Pelicans that ended up costing them a play-in position. But he was really good in his first game with New Orleans. Hopefully that is able to continue. And his kind of play style can really thrive playing off of guys like Zion, like Brandon Ingram. And we saw a lot of that last night. So he was really good coming off the bench as well. And then last point on the game, Dyson Daniels looked really good to me. We know what he could do defensively, but offensively, he's playing with a lot more confidence. His very first touch of the season, he spins towards the baseline, had a really nice finish for a layup. I'm curious to see what Dyson Daniels can do the rest of the season. And Jordan Hawkins was pretty quiet last night, the rookie out of UConn, Angel Reese's cousin, for those of you who don't know. Fun
fact. He did hit that clutch 3, though.
He did, and that was his first NBA shot. That was good to see. First shot, goes in, has to be a good confidence builder, and he finishes the game with 3 points in 9 minutes. But you definitely see the potential there, to Taylor's point, and we'll see how much of Jordan Hawkins we see going forward. But the Pelicans do get the win in Memphis last night. They'll open the season at home against the Knicks on Saturday. Hester's former team, the New York Knicks. Jaru3 in the chat says Matt Ryan is the new Ryan Anderson. Y'all remember Ryan Anderson on the Pelicans? That dude could fill it up. And they got him in a trade for Gustavo Ayón, which at the time was a really good trade. So shout out to Del Demps. I wonder how he is doing these days. Win for the Pelicans last night in Memphis. The Pelicans beat the Grizzlies 111-104. Everybody's healthy for now. They're 1-0 on the season. They got the Knicks in the Smoothie King Center on Saturday night, so good vibes in Pels land so far.